Hi, I'm Cherice Taylor. I host the Facebook page Time Matters, and today I have Dr. Karina Montilla Edmonds. She is the Vice President of Academies and University Alliances at SAP. Um, Welcome and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Gosh,
Thank you, Cherice, for having me today.
very welcome. We're going to talk about women in STEM. And so what I would like you to do is just talk to us about what you dreamt about as a young girl. What obstacles did you face on your journey to where you are today?
Sure. So let's see. First, I just want to say that women in STEM is an issue that I supported for as long as I can remember, and that it's a very important topic. As a young girl, I don't think I initially realized what an uphill battle it would be, or how much girls are discouraged from pursuing science. But honestly, I have seen it through raising my daughters. So I have 3 girls, and I see it everywhere, initially early on, even, McDonald's, where you get a toy and you have the girl toy and the boy toy. And usually the boy toy is a mechanical, something fun with moving parts, and the girl could be an innate, doll. And so why should my child feel like a freak because I asked for the boy toy? It'd be great to have toy number 1 and toy number 2. But from an early age, girls to send this message. I was fortunate because when I was in 5th grade, my math teacher noticed that I had a special aptitude in math. And so she recommended me for a program into middle school. At the time, the program was called Times 2. At that time, it was just 1 class. Now it's an entire academy in Providence, Rhode Island, where I grew up. And Times 2 now stands for to increase math, engineering, and science students. And so through that program, what was special was I was in a class with 30 students, many of whom I'm still in contact with, and everyone has done really well. And through that program, I got to meet engineers. And every engineer that I met was doing something different and something interesting. And most importantly, they seemed that they had a fairly good job. And by a fairly good job, I mean that had a living wage, not living paycheck to paycheck, which at that time I found very attractive. And so, and I just thought, hey, by becoming an engineer, I would have a lot of options, which really turned out to be true.
Well, that's great. And I think it's really important to discuss the fact that it was a teacher that saw that in you and encouraged you. And so I really want us to emphasize the significance and importance of our children's educators and how much of a role they play in our partnership to help our kids progress. So as you've thought about that, especially with your daughters and going through your path, what pearls of wisdom do you have for families on how to assist their children? A lot of us have children that are home because of the pandemic, and so they have a little more time on their hands. What advice do you have for parents, some pearls of wisdom?
Sure. First, I should have mentioned earlier, you're right. Teachers play such an important role. And for me, somebody to identify my math skills. And while I did have a special aptitude in math, I think sometimes parents or students think like you have to have that special aptitude in math. And I'm here to say you don't. You can work hard. Unfortunately, a lot of times girls think that math is an innate ability, and it's not. You can learn to be good at it. I mean, obviously, if it's something that you ultimately don't enjoy, that's one thing, but you can't afford not to be good at math, regardless of what you do. And I would tell my girls that all the time, like, you can do whatever you want, but that doesn't give you an excuse to wave off math. It really frustrates me. A lot of times when I see moms say, oh, I'm just not good at math. Even if you're not, please don't say that in front of your child, because then they see that as an excuse and like, I don't have to try hard. I don't have to work hard. I'm just not good at math. Mm-hmm. And that's just not true. Everybody can be good at math, and it's everywhere. So, from an early age, I always just try to point out where math is always so important. doing fractions, whether it's with a pizza or, I lived in DC where you are for many years. We would drive through Rock Creek Park, and anytime we saw a deer, it's like, how many legs do we have? How many ears? And that quick calculation, and just how, like I said, math is everywhere and science is everywhere. People are like, oh, I can't do science. Well, you do science when you wake up, you brush your teeth, when you eat something. Everything is science. And so I think it's important for us as much as we can to expose our kids to science and be lifelong learners. And I think children pick up from their parents. I'm very enthusiastic. I love to travel, and I love to learn new things. And so I think that's something that you can instill very easily in your child, whatever it is, whatever that interest is. And that's the other thing, to support your children in whatever it is that they want to learn about. And that may change from year to year, from month to month, or week to week, but whatever that is, to feed them that information that they want to learn about.
And so in speaking about that exposure and how we speak to our kids, how do you then define success? And if you can tie in your definition of success, and then how that kind of ties into STEM and the importance of women being represented in the field.
Sure. So success can be defined in many ways. And for me, it's always meant freedom. And I think it's important also as a woman. I did become a single mom in the last 8 years, and it was important for me to have a career and be independent. And so, but even before that, what I think an education in STEM provides you is a lot of freedom to do what you want to do and be where you want to be, especially right now in this time of COVID, where having a STEM degree, for the most part, will allow you to work remotely because of the work that you can do. It typically keeps you away from hard labor, which is something that I was keenly aware of growing up. I had both of my parents working. They were mold injectors. They ran a mold injection machine, which most people don't know what that is. It was a terrible job, and it got moved to China. But even though it wasn't a great job, it was a job at the time. And so I saw their jobs disappear very quickly. And I saw myself within my first year of college and my first internship, I was making twice the amount of money that they were making. And so while I don't necessarily define success as having tons of money, you do have to have enough money to feel comfortable, to live a comfortable life where you're not concerned about where your next paycheck is coming from. So for me, that was very important, to have basic living wage, where I didn't have to work weekends. I also, for me, success meant, again, the freedom to be wherever I needed to be. So if I needed to be at my kids' school for a performance, if I needed to plan to do something, that I could do that, having more time with my family. And also just the ability to continue to learn. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record after this, but freedom, allows you the ability to learn. And, success and failure, I don't think are the polar opposites. You shouldn't consider failure as something that's bad. What you want to do is learn from your mistakes and move on. And so, there's a great quote, it's not mine. It says, you either win or you learn. And so,
I like that.
And so long as you learn something from that experience, you haven't failed. And also, if you're successful, everything you do means you're not trying hard enough. You should, you want a healthy amount of failure in your life, and that it shouldn't be looked down upon or looked like a bad thing. That's something that you learn, something that you don't need to do or you don't want to do. And so I don't want to just talk about success, because it's easy to do that, but just also that we should embrace failure.
I like that, because you have to step out of your comfort zone. And I want to just briefly talk about that, being open for opportunities. And I think sometimes we get locked into a certain path or a certain way of thinking. And can you just speak about that as we close, about being open to opportunities? And then if there's anything else that you want to add that we didn't talk about, please feel free to do so.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I wish I would have asked you to ask me that, because from day one, that's actually what I've always worked to do, was to have, in terms of opportunity, I refer to it as option. I always wanted to have as many options as I could. It's the reason I chose engineering, not exactly sure what I wanted to do, but knowing that an engineering degree would give me lots of options. Through my whole academic career and my work career, I always look at opportunities to learn and grow. Everything that I've done, I know people will look back on my career and say, oh my gosh, how did you have all these amazing jobs and opportunity? And it's about being open, right? So in 2010, I had an opportunity to join the Obama administration. And while I didn't think it was such a brave decision, when I talked to other people, they said, oh my gosh, you came all the way across the country with 3 young kids. And to me, I just saw that as an amazing opportunity to be in Washington, D.C. under a historic administration. And I have no regrets. My kids learned so much, and just the opportunity to, what you learn in moving across the country. And even though I'm from back east, my kids were born in California and only knew California. So for them to live in Washington, D.C. and have that experience was amazing. And so, yeah, in every job that I've had, you know, I get asked all the time, how did you decide to leave this job? And it's always about growing and learning. What more can I do? In 2017, so 2010, I went to Washington, D.C. and served in the administration. And that was an awesome opportunity where I got to learn a lot about our government and how the federal labs work there for the Department of Energy during that time. And then in 2017, I had another great opportunity to join Google. And again, it was doing something completely different that I had done, going into the artificial intelligence space, which I did not have a background in, but again, had to learn about that, and super grateful for that opportunity. I was supporting the University Relations Alliance. Most of my work has been in building relationships. That's what I am. I've been a connector between academia and research and industry. And so that's a common thread, but in every job, as I mentioned, I was in Washington, D.C. I was focused on energy, came back to Caltech and led corporate partnerships for all of campus. So I supported the biology department, the astrophysics department, engineering, chemistry, you name it, and we covered all of it. So I became a jack of all trades and an expert in none, which is a little different than what I did for my PhD. So in that, again, in growing, so going over to Google, and then now doing a deep dive in this very specific field of artificial intelligence, which is, as you know, everywhere.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's one thing that we all have to get smart on and recognize the benefits as well as some of the pitfalls of technology. Yeah, and you know, I guess the one last thing I would say is, yeah, that instead of trying to figure out, you know, what you're going to learn, we all have to learn, because things are changing so quickly, as we see in this current global pandemic. Yes. And how quickly technology is changing, and what a big part of our lives technology is going to be for the foreseeable future, that we just have to be open to learn. We can no longer say, hey, I'm not going to get an email, I'm not going to learn that. I don't need to learn that. To the extent that you can know about things that are affecting you and will affect you in the future.
Well, that was great information. And I hope when people listen to this that they get that message of being open. And I love that. That's very important for students and for our families to do, even as parents, for us to continue to do and model that behavior as well. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I always end with, remember, how you spend your time matters. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cherice.